Good evening. Tonight we're doing an Infernal opener. This is 0.3.2. This is a opener that is a quick Plague Axis, quick tech 2-base build. You've maybe seen MSRM use it lately. I'm going to go through pretty quick explaining what I'm doing, and then we'll go back through a little slower in a replay to talk through a little bit more of the nuanced details. So to start, you're going to build a worker. You're then going to grab one of your middle guys, and you're going to build your conclave. Your next worker is going to go on gas. Or, well, I guess we call it Therium in this game. So put your guy on Therium. You're then going to search for your other 3 stack in the middle, and you're going to grab one of those guys and put him on Therium as well. And we're going to mineral trick out this next imp to get ourselves 3 on each outside lane and 2 only in the middle lane. So I have another video that explains how to do that if you're curious. At 300, you're going to have one of your imps return, a partial load, and then build your shrine. Alright, and then you put one more guy on Therium. So what you're trying to do is get 10 efficiently set up on Luminite, 2 on Therium. You have both your shrines up and your conclave on the way. Your next worker that comes out, you're going to also have to do one more partial return, and then you're going to build your tech for Plague Axes. I'm lagging pretty bad now. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our ritual chamber. Your next worker is going to go on is now going to be your expand. So we'll start him and send him out to go get our expansion. You can send your Hexen with him to protect him in case you're playing against dogs. And you're going to start your expand. Now your following workers are going to go into Luminite, and you're back up to 15 and 15, so you're just waiting for this shrine to finish, and then also to start your Plague Axes as soon as your Ritual Chamber finishes. So you can actually go ahead and queue this worker up, but he won't build until this shrine finishes.
Not enough barrel farms.
You're also going to get 2 gaunts, but you want to start your Plague Axes first. You can go ahead and build a gaunt as soon as you get a chance. And you're putting guys on gas. So your goal, and I just oversaturated that, but your goal is to get to where you have 12 on Luminite and 6 on your Therium, and then your next worker that you make is going to make your vault. Get yourself up to 4 gaunts. This will be your vault. Now all your next guys are going to go to your expansion. You do want to start your tech as soon as you can, so build that worker and start your tech. All your workers are going to go here to your expansion. And then right about 3, you should have just finished your Plague Axes. You can use your Hexen to tank. Drop an effigy because you won't necessarily have Shroud on most maps. And keep producing into your expansion. Now, technically you would go do more on the rest of the map, but we're not going to do that right now. Instead, since your tech just finished, you're then going to grab your Twilight Spire. And you can now either choose to expand this at another time, or you can choose to turtle on 2 bases. So for the purpose of this video, we're just going to build a couple meat farms, another conclave, and a teleport. You do want to get 2 more sets of gaunts, and now you have your 8 gaunts to come when this comes out for you to be able to do your drops. You can also start getting your Magmadon tech. You would keep building workers, saturate this mine. And you can set yourself up for a 2-base play, or like I said, you could have gone to 3 bases pretty quickly. You have Reaper's Rush you can get at any point in time. Could have gotten that a little bit earlier. But in general, you're set up to basically get your defensive Magmadon. You're set up to go quickly to tier 3 with a drop if you want. You can use the drop to stall while you go to tier 3. Ideally, you want to have your Hellforge coming out And so here would be for your drop. And then you basically want to start your tier 3 tech. And then within the next 10 seconds, you want to start your Magmadon Trample. See, I'm a little bit behind on gas. Get your Magmadon Trample. You'll see I have enough money to expand, but you also could have been dropping more meat farms, making more production, doing some other things like that. If you were to be staying on just 2 bases for a little while. Obviously, you'd be dropping with your Harbinger. You could be creeping. There's a lot of things you could be doing with your military, but I'm mostly just showing you kind of the tech options of what you're most likely going to want to pick up. So you should have your Reaper's Rush, and I could have started that a little earlier as well. But you'll see that your Demon Hoof Tremors should be finishing about the same time as your tier 3 tech. I've obviously stopped building. I'm not spending my money. But you could have multiple pieces of production up by now. Typically, if you're going to stay on 2 base, you're going to want 4 production structures for whatever units you're building. So, if you're going to have 1 Iron Vault and 3 Conclaves would be an option. If you're actually trying to build Spriggans, you could have multiple Spriggan buildings, things like that. But typically, you want 4 combat production buildings if you're on 2 base, and then 6 once you go up to 3 base, and so on and so forth. So, you'll now be able to get Raging Tendons. You are going to be pretty gas capped with this build because 6 actually will mine out the expansion here. So you really need to take a 3rd base with some gas. This is not a good map for that necessarily. But in general, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to do in the build. So now we're going to hop into the replay and we're going to go through a little bit more. Some nuance of the build and explain it a little bit again. So we're hopping in the replay really quick. Now, remember, the goal for this is to get Plague Axes as quick as possible. Ideally, you would use that to keep creeping. You would creep much more aggressively than I did, and very likely, if your opponent is not playing some kind of aggressive 1-base build, you're not going to stay on 2 base. I'm not going to go through too many options as far as what exactly decisions you'd make, because that depends heavily upon what your opponent's doing. But in the beginning, you're basically going up to 11 workers on Luminite, and then, like I said before, you're building your Conclave. Next worker is going to go on gas. We'll speed it up a little bit. You put 2 workers on gas. You're going to Luminite trick yourself to get 10 up on your Luminite. I was lagging there, so it was a lot slower. You do have to do an early return to have enough resources to get your tech that's coming up here shortly. But in general, you're trying to get to where you have the 10 workers on here. There's actually 10. Don't ignore that it was saying 9 for a little bit there. Get your guys on gas. You're going to keep 2 on gas. As soon as your Conclave finishes, you want to build that Ritual Chamber. Like I said, you may have to do an early return to make sure you actually have the 50 Ethereum. Once you reach this point, now your next worker is going to go set up your expansion. You can keep your Hexen at home if you're playing against Vanguard, or you can actually move him out to the middle of the map and scout. But you do want to bring him home when you actually decide to go attack with Plague Axes into your healing clamp. So at this point, you're basically sitting on 15 supply, and you're waiting for this shrine to finish. So should be at 11 workers on your Luminite, 2 on your gas, and then as soon as this finishes, you're basically going to go up to 12 on here. Start pumping yourself up to 6, starting your Plague Axes, and building your first 4 guns. So you start your Plague Axes. You got 12 on here. I think I actually end up putting a 13th on there for a second, then have to move him. And then you do want to start getting your gaunts out. You should have just hit 3 charges on your gaunts, so you actually didn't waste but maybe a few seconds on your gaunts. Total charge time. So you're actually not that far behind people who actually started pumping gaunts a little bit earlier. You were just specifically waiting for Plague Axes so you can maximize getting the extra units off your first camp. Again, so you're up to 6 on your Ethereum, you have 12 on your Illuminite now, your expansion's about to pop, you have your 4 gaunts. At this point, if you were out scouting with your Hexen, you want to bring them back. Assuming you didn't take too much damage on your Hexen, you do want them to tank the healing camp so your gaunts stay at full health. You will have to drop the effigy to do that, and you'll be able to get yourself 5 quick fiends. Now, I will pause here for a second. So this is kind of the next transition point that happens. So, like I said, I've got 6 on my Ethereum, 12 on my Luminite. You're now sitting on 3 shrines, so you can actually saturate your expansion really quickly while still having quite a bit of tech. I did build that iron vault in the middle as well. Once I hit my 6 workers on Ethereum, I built an iron vault before this actually expanded. And then all your guys are going to get dumped into here. There's a lot of decision points that you have here. I talked through a few of those earlier in the video, but in general, what you're basically trying to do is get a bunch of fiends from this camp on a map that has a speed camp. You would probably immediately then go to the speed camp and try to get another 5 fiends at the speed camp. 4 or 5 fiends. But you're basically trying to tech really quickly to getting Magmadon Trample on 2 bases. Now you're also, depending on what your opponent's doing, is I'm playing as AI. If they fast expanded into 2 bases or potentially taking a 3rd, you could double expand pretty quickly behind this while you're creeping. But really what you're trying to get to, and you'll see as we play forward a little bit here, so you're going to hit your, right at about 3 minutes, you should be finishing your Plague Axes. You're going to use that to clear your first camp, and then ideally you're going to clear your second or third camp as well, while you're building up your natural. And then you're kind of just making a decision about what you plan to do, either if you're going to sit on 2 base for a while because your opponent is on 1 base or it has less options. You have a lot of decisions that you can make. One thing you can even do too, if you're getting all in with some kind of low tech build, is you can keep all your stuff in your main, not even take your expansion, and you can play basically as a 1 base with 2 shrines. So this build has a lot of flexibility. The main things that you really want to do though is just make sure that you get your greater shrine pretty early. That way you can have a defensive Magmadon coming out of your iron vault if you need. But you can always just drop a bunch of meat farms and start pumping units if you need to as well. So you'll see me float a bunch of Luminite in this build because I'm not necessarily making a lot of those decisions that you would have to make. If there is interest, I could potentially show some longer games in the future where you do make some of those decisions on what to do. Typically, especially on this map, I would probably take the double gas and go pretty high tech pretty quick. But you basically want speed Gaunts and you want speed Magmadons for most of the builds that people are playing right now with Infernal. So hopefully this build is useful and helps you out. It does take a little bit of getting used to in the beginning and trying it out. The build can be a little bit awkward. Just some things that are generally useful to know is your Demon Hoof Tremors that you get out of your Hellforge have a very similar research time to your Tier 3 tech. So your Tier 3 tech is 70 seconds, and your Demon Hoof Tremors is 60. So if you start your Tier 3, and it's, maybe 20% of the way done, and then you start your Demon Hoof Tremors will finish at the same time as your Tier 3 tech, and you'll be able to go right into the Raging Tendons, which is really useful. So you're basically trying to get to Tier 3 really fast. You can use drops to harass and slow your opponent down while you're trying to double expand behind it, or just massing units and creeping. There's a lot of different things you can do with this build. I'm not actually especially good at the build. I would recommend watching MSRM if you want to see kind of how he was playing it. But that's kind of the gist of it. Get really quick Plague Axes so that you can use all of your Hexen energy to scout or even to harass your opponent. You can make a couple different eyes, and you can go in and try to snipe his Lancers that are at low health while he's creeping his camp. And there's some other fun things you can do. So it's a really cool build all around. Hope you liked the video. And if you do have questions, please leave them in the comments and let me know. Thank you very much.